and welcome. I would like to introduce myself. I'm Sanjay Palmer, a partner at Grunberg Co, a firm based in Collingdale, northwest London. I oversee the firm's business cloud department that deal with several clients in the construction sector. And I would like to talk to you about the imminent introduction of the VAT reverse charge affecting the construction industry. The Construction Industries Scheme, CIS, VAT reverse charge, applies to suppliers of construction services and materials from 1st of March 2021. It was initially planned to start from October 2019, but was postponed to October 2020 to avoid the changes coincide with Brexit and to help businesses and give them more time to prepare according to HMRC. However, due to the impact of the coronavirus outbreak on the construction industry, HMRC has extended the October 2020 date by further 5 months. This measure is being introduced because of VAT fraud in the construction sector labour supply chains. HMRC considered that the CIS VAT reverse charge will impact around 150,000 businesses. The CIS reverse charge is formally known as the domestic reverse charge for building and construction. Similar VAT reverse charges have been employed in the past to deal with the issues of missing trader fraud between certain goods supplied from overseas businesses and have been found to be effective. This has what has prompted HMRC to implement these changes within the construction sector. The new CIS reverse charge applies when all the following are met. There is a supply for VAT consists of construction services and materials. The supply is made at the standard rate or reduced rate of 5% VAT. The supply is made between a UK VAT registered supplier and a UK VAT registered customer. Both supplier and customer are registered for CIS. The customer intends to make an ongoing supply of construction services to another party. And finally, the supplier and customer are not connected. The CIS VAT reverse charge does not apply to zero-rated supplies or if the customer is based outside of the UK. As mentioned earlier, the aim of the measure is to reduce the VAT fraud in the construction sector. The scheme applies only to VAT-registered businesses who are supplying and/or receiving services that are reported under CIS. In other words, it applies to services supplied between the majority of the construction subcontractors and contractors in the UK. If your CIS business is the recipient of construction services and receives an invoice with a reverse charge applied, then you account for the VAT amount as part of your overall input tax, as if you have charged it to yourself. If your business is not registered for VAT, then the reverse charge cannot be applied to you, and the standard VAT rules apply for the supplier. So they will charge you the VAT and account for it as usual. If you are not VAT registered, you should make it clear to the supplier in writing. Crucially, the reverse charge do not contribute to a company's potential VAT threshold. Therefore, if you are not registered for VAT, then any attempt to apply the reverse charge will not push you over the limit. Notably, the reverse charge also doesn't apply to end users, such as the people who use a building that is being constructed by the provided services, and nor does it apply to some of those connected to them, such as landlords and tenants. Under the new rules, VAT-registered subcontractors who provide a service and any related goods to a VAT-registered contractor who is CIS registered no longer need to account for the VAT. Instead, it is the contractor who will account for the VAT as an input tax, as if they made the supply to themselves. Let me explain with an example how the CIS reverse charge works. The end user, Rock-On, contracts with Canon to extend its London office on the 1st of April 2021. Canon, the contractor, who is a VAT-registered business, hires a subcontractor, Ball, who is also VAT-registered, to undertake majority of the construction services. Let us say that Ball's supplies to Canon are all standard rated. How does this work under the current system? Ball would, under the old VAT system, invoice Canon, say £120,000, comprising of his £100,000 bill for materials, labour and works, plus £20,000 in VAT at 20%. Under the new system, the new CIS reverse charge mechanism, Ball invoices £100,000. His invoice states that the CIS reverse charge applies and that the applicable rate of VAT is 20%. Contractor Canon pays Ball the net £100,000 fee. He then includes this within his wider invoice and accounts for output and input VAT, including the £20,000 on the supply of Ball's services. Ball does not account for output VAT in his accounting system, as he has invoiced only his fee of £100,000. As a consequence of the reverse charge procedure, Ball charges and receives £20,000 less than under the old system, where he would have charged £100,000 plus VAT. However, he does not have to account to HMRC for any output tax on the transaction. So the question is, how does Ball account for VAT? When he is paid, he includes the value of the sale of £100,000 in box 6 of his VAT return. He does not add VAT to box 1, as he receives no output VAT. The charge may well impact Ball's cash flow, as under the old rules, if contractor Canon was a prompt payer, he could hope that he could use the £20,000 in VAT to purchase his materials. He could then purchase his materials and offset the input tax against his output tax liability. Contractor Canon has a cash flow advantage. He does not have to pay Ball £20,000, and then at the end of that quarter, he cannot reclaim the £20,000 as it is accounting for the reverse charge, and the output VAT offsets the input VAT. Canon on his VAT return will only show £20,000 in box 1 and box 4 and £100,000 in box 7. You should be aware, however, that employment businesses who supply staff and who are responsible for paying the temporary workers they supply are not subject to the reverse charge. The CIS reverse charge does not apply to taxable supplies made to the following customers: a non-VAT registered customer, a non-business customer. The end user is the CIS registered person at the end of the supply chain who does not make an onward supplies of the building and construction services. Intermediary suppliers who are connected. Let me explain what an intermediary suppliers are. These intermediary suppliers are end users or intermediaries connected with the end users, i.e. landlord and tenant. To be connected or linked to an end user, intermediary suppliers must either share a relevant interest in the same land where the construction works are taking place, or be part of the same corporate group or undertaking as defined in Section 1161 of the Companies Act 2006. The following and any persons connected to them have a relevant interest in land: landlords, lessors, licensors, tenants, lessees, or licensees. A relevant interest in land does not include any temporary rights to occupy land to carry out building and construction services. A property owning group may buy construction services through one member of the group and recharge those services to either group companies, their tenants, or both. All the members of the property owning group and their tenants will be the end users. The reverse charge should not apply here. The end client must confirm its status down the line that it is VAT registered within CIS and inviting that the supply being made to it is not on an exempted supply within Article 8 of the Value Added Tax, Section 55A, Specified Services and Exempted Supplies Order 2019, the order. New customers should be asked to provide details of their registration as a contractor for CIS purposes or a copy of their CIS verification from you and retain these. It is recommended that end users sign a statement for each applicable contract. The suggested wording is on the slide, but I'll mention it here again. The wording is, we are an end user for the purposes of Section 55A, VAT Act 1994, reverse charge for building and construction services. Please issue us with a normal VAT invoice with VAT charged at the appropriate rate. We will not account for the reverse charge. For businesses that often deal with end users, the practical way of dealing with the question of end user status is for the business to include a statement in their terms and conditions to say they will assume that their customer is an end user, unless they are not. This places a responsibility on the customer to respond if this is not the case. HM and Revenue and Customs has defined a list of construction services as within the new reverse charge regime, which is quite expansive. It includes services, everything from constructing, altering, repairing, extending, demolishing, or dismantling buildings or structures to the painting or decorating the inside of or the external services. Rather than list every single supply, I highly recommend that you visit the gov.uk website. The link is on the screen for you to look at now. HMRC's guidance also includes a number of excluded services as well as such as extracting oil, minerals, or natural gas. But again, these are listed on the government website. However, to make things more complicated, certain excluded services can be included, such as if there's a reverse charge element in a supply. For example, a supply of just windows is not within CIS, but supply and fitting is within CIS. If there has already been a reverse charge service between two parties on the construction site, and if both parties agree, any subsequent construction supplies on that site between the same parties can be treated as reverse charge services. If there is doubt whether a type of work falls within the definition of a specified service, as long as the recipient is VAT registered and the payments are subject to CIS, the reverse charge should apply. Where the contractor is asked to consider all construction contracts with a subcontractor, if they can see that reverse charge applies to more than 5% of contracts by volume or value with that subcontractor, then the reverse charge may be applied to all the contracts. HMRC has set an example of a joiner constructing a staircase off-site, then installing it on-site, making a reverse charge service due to the installation element of the supply to illustrate how the rules may be applied. However, this is only one of a number of scenarios which highlights the importance of seeking external advice and support, as well as the need to prepare for these changes. You will need to make changes to your invoicing and accounting procedures to take the reverse charge into account. But this may differ depending on whether you are a contractor or a subcontractor. You should also discuss the cash flow implications on your business of moving to the new regime, as there may be ways to mitigate the impact. The reverse charge will only apply to all jobs completed on or after 1st of March 2021, but it may also apply to work that was commenced before this date, but completed afterwards. Determining when the switch to the new VAT regime takes place depends on the tax point, i.e. the date of the issue of the VAT invoice or the receipt of payment. Where the tax point is on or after 1st of March 2021, then the reverse charge should be applied even for work commenced before this date. Otherwise, the existing VAT rules apply. Some subcontractor businesses, as a result of the reverse charge, may find that because they no longer actually pay VAT to HMRC on some of their sales, they will have become repayment traders. It will therefore be in their interest to switch to completing monthly returns in order to quicken the making of VAT repayments due from HMRC. I will now cover some of these points to clarify the issues that businesses may face. Tax points. VAT is due when a VAT invoice is issued or payment is received, whichever is earlier. A single payment contract, the tax point is the date that the service is performed or completed. With retention payments, the tax point is when the payment is received or a VAT invoice has been issued for it, whichever is earlier. Treatment of existing contracts. The VAT treatment is determined for payments due on or any supplies entered into your accounting system before 1st of March 2021. The first submission after the rules come into place, but paid on or after 1st of March 2021. For contracts starting after 1st of March 2021, you should decide whether the reverse charge applies from the start of the contract. VAT schemes. Cash accounting scheme cannot be used with the CIS reverse charge invoices. A business will need to review the use of flat rate scheme. If a business is likely to become a VAT repayable business, it will be beneficial for it to move to monthly VAT returns as referred earlier. VAT registration. It might be beneficial for some businesses to register for VAT to make applying the rules easier. This is because where the services are caught by the new rules, the recipient business is treated as making a supply to itself of the services received for VAT registration purposes. This is regardless of whether the supplier is VAT registered or not. The supplier is still treated as making a taxable supply for VAT registration purposes too. These rules could result in a non-VAT registered businesses having a far lower effective VAT registration threshold. VAT payment. Where both the supplier and the recipient are VAT registered or should be VAT registered, the recipient is liable to account for and pay for the VAT to HMRC on behalf of the supplier. The supplier will not make a VAT payment on those supplies. The first £1,000 per supplier per month is ignored in this case. VAT penalties. Some businesses are going to have a certain amount of teething problems in getting grips with the reverse charge mechanism. HMRC understands that implementing the reverse charge may cause some difficulties and will apply a light touch in dealing with any errors made in the first 6 months of the new legislation, as long as they are trying to comply with the new legislation and have acted in good faith. Any errors need to be corrected as soon as possible, as the longer under-declared or overcharged sums remain outstanding, the more difficult it may be to correct or recover them. HMRC officers may assess for errors during the light touch period. Penalties will only be considered if you are deliberately taking advantage of the measures by not accounting for it correctly. The typical causes of VAT errors. That's due to poor or inadequate record keeping and recording. This is usually highlighted by businesses having poor systems, software, and training provided to staff. Typical CIS errors. These errors include failure to determine what a construction contract is within CIS, incorrectly excluding activities from CIS, Subcontractors overstating material elements or including the cost of their own plant or their own scaffolding as a deduction. VAT registered subcontractors including VAT as part of their material costs, and failure to apply CIS to certain V charges between entities within an organisation. VAT errors. Making tax digital for VAT has been challenging for many taxpayers. Several causes of the VAT errors include due to the way that some software allowed the late claims on their first VAT return due under the new system, there has been some scope for inaccurate reporting, at least for the first return. Setting incorrect codes on software. The software does not automatically flag up the wrong rate of VAT is used. It is advised to reconcile VAT to turnover when accounts are prepared and to recheck any late claims in case there was accidental duplication of input VAT claims. Some adjustments are not errors, and these are bad debt relief claims, credit notes, pre-registration or post-registration VAT reclaims, capital goods scheme adjustments. It is only if the original adjustment under these schemes was incorrect that you would complete an error notification. Invoicing. When supplying a service subject to the CIS reverse charge, suppliers must show all the information that is normally required on a VAT invoice, as well as a note on the invoice must make it clear that the CIS reverse charge applies and that the customer is required to account for the VAT. No VAT is charged on the invoice. It should state how much VAT is due under the reverse charge or the rate of VAT if the VAT amount cannot be shown, but the VAT should not be included in the amount charged to the customer. If you use software to produce your invoices and your system cannot show the amount of VAT to be accounted for under the reverse charge, then the wording should state that VAT is to be accounted for by your customer at the standard or reduced rate of VAT based on the VAT exclusive selling price for the reverse charge goods and services. If an invoice is for multiple services, the customer must be able to identify the reverse charge goods or services. Under the VAT Regulations 1995, invoices for services subject to the reverse charge where the customer is liable for the VAT must include the reference reverse charge. Examples of wording that meet the legal requirement are referred on the slide. To help determine how you are likely to be affected, you should ask yourself questions to see whether the new rules apply and how they may affect you to make sure you are properly prepared. We've included some examples on the screen now for your consideration. Take the time to go over these and consider your response so you can put the right measures in place. Remember, you are not alone. We have considerable experience and expertise in the construction sector working with individuals and companies of various sizes, including investors, developers, to assist them with their tax and accounting requirements. Additional areas where we can advise on include CIS, tax, requirements and employment status matters relating to CIS, maximizing capital allowance claims, property and construction specific VAT advice and tax planning, property finance, research and development, tax credits, stamp duty, land tax advice and planning, tax efficient property ownership. If you have projects that end after 1st of March 2021 and include construction services, then it's likely that the changes to VAT reverse charge invoicing will apply. In any event, you should attempt to become familiar now with what is and is not included under the reverse charge and communicate with contractors who regularly use you to ensure they also understand the requirement. As a contractor, you might want to contact your regular subcontractors and discuss the matter with them. Should you require further guidance on the VAT reverse charge, please do contact us.